the Crash Course Podcast. My name is CraigCrash Collins, joined as always by Brandon Scott, otherwise known as B. Scott. Yes, he has made his triumphant return to the podcast after being a gosh darn inspiration last week. B. Scott is here, and we've got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to be talking about the Indianapolis Colts, who fell to 1-4. The reason why we delayed the podcast, we didn't have to delay it at all because it's another loss. And then you also have just some NFL storylines. We're going to get into the weeds a little bit with the NFL. We haven't done that yet, and we figured this was a good time to do that because next week, of course, is there going to be our NBA preview show, and then who knows what will happen after that. So we wanted to make sure to get in on some NFL talk before everything else kind of kicks off. But first of all, B. Scott, how have you been? How was your weekend? How was your week away from the podcast?
It was busy. I spent my night away from the podcast. I went up to Purdue to speak at the Purdue Dance Marathon Day of Miracles event, kickoff, a candlelight vigil to tell my family's story about our Riley Hospital experience with Jillian and myself as well. But yeah, it was, good overall. Pretty low-key weekend. Purdue had an off week, so, we didn't have much to do. How about you? How was yours?
It was good. We want to again extend our thank yous to Dan, who filled in last week. He did a great job. But yeah, basically, went to work. Had my Saturday off, where I got to be wrong about the the Craig Crash Wheel of Misery for the first time all season. Auburn getting thumped by Georgia, but we are all given a big sigh of relief when Alabama loses, although I think although the only sad part about that is I think that may not bode too well for Cincinnati, but that's a discussion for another day.
Cincinnati's in right now.
Well, no, but
Cincinnati keeps winning.
Right, but here's my thought. We won't get too deep into the weeds here, but Alabama's got one loss now, right? Georgia's number 1 and is undefeated. If Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship game,
don't they play each other before then though? No. I thought they played each other this year.
No, they don't.
For some reason
they don't play. They don't play until the SEC championship game. So if Alabama beats Georgia, then that's pretty enticing to put both of those teams in. If Oklahoma can manage to stay undefeated, they're going to be in there, and then there's going to be
Oklahoma's going to stay undefeated. That's duh.
Well, I mean, they almost got beat by Texas.
Who else in the Arkansas? Big 12. Who else in the Big 12 is going to?
No, it's either Oklahoma or no one. But there's a chance it could be no one if Oklahoma loses.
Ooh, but wait a second. Oklahoma will play Texas again in the Big 12 championship game.
Maybe. We'll see.
Most likely.
Most likely, yeah. But yeah, and then you have, the Pac-12 isn't going, the ACC isn't going, so there's a chance Cincinnati can still get in. I'm just saying that the fact that there could now be 2 SEC teams definitely muddies the waters.
Or potentially 2 Big Ten teams.
Yeah, true. But the main thing, though, to get into, B. Scott, before we get into our discussion, because you, of course, bring up Dan being on the show last week. The big thing about that was is we had a discussion about the MLB postseason. Obviously, you weren't there. So with the Boston Red Sox officially moving on, because Dan and I picked not only against the Red Sox against the Yankees in the wild card game, we also picked the Rays.
The same thing.
We also picked the Rays to beat the winner of the wild card game, and both those things are wrong, as the Red Sox will go to the ALCS. They'll play Houston, who clinched earlier today, and so B. Scott, we all share in our hatred of Houston. So I definitely big time Red Sox fan. I'm going to be joining in your camp. At least for the next, 7 games.
Oh, I can't believe it. But I do reckon back to, God, I'm getting old. No, I do recall in a preview, like looking at I think it was a few weeks ago where we were looking at which teams can actually make a push to the playoffs. Yeah. And you you were all on board for the Red Sox at that point. I really wasn't.
Yeah, it's true, because I had Red Sox Blue Jays.
You didn't even have, you didn't have the Yankees making it, but you said, hey, I have the Red Sox making it. I have the Red Sox winning in the wild card game, and I think the Red Sox match up the best against the Rays. So I just kept that in the back of my mind throughout this whole series, and it really came true, honestly. And what's funny is that when it came to pitching, it was the least likely suspects for the Red Sox that really had a bright series. So, I mean, that bodes well for this team, and I think they match up well against Houston as well. I think it's going to be a really competitive ALCS. It's really surprising that out of all the teams from the AL East that are still alive, it's the Red Sox. I don't think going into the playoffs, the way they kind of fumbled their way in there, it felt like that they would be the last one standing in the AL East. So I'm really excited. But like I tweeted last night, I said, there's just like October at Fenway just hits differently. There's a different electricity in the air with that crowd. I've never been to a Red Sox playoff game. I would give up the rest of my arms to be able to go to a Red Sox playoffs game. So especially against like an AL East opponent, there's just an even added electricity to that. But I mean, you can just hear it in the highlights last night when Rafi Devers hit that 3-run home run to kick off that 5-run inning in the third. The place just blew up. I mean, it's totally different than anywhere else. I mean, maybe Wrigley Field could match it, but there's no place else other that can really match that electricity like Fenway does in October.
Oh yeah, when almost said Rafael Montero. When Miguel Montero hit the grand slam against Joe Blanton in the game 1 of the NLCS against the Dodgers, like that was one of the more electric scenes that I've seen at Wrigley Field, and of course when they clinched to go to the World Series. But
or we could look back to 2004 and David Ortiz,
Yeah, and I mean
heroics at Fenway.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of goes to show you. I mean, the Rays, are big into analytics. They,
too much.
Too much. That's what I was getting right. That's what the point I was getting to.
Just play the game at this point in the season.
Right, and like you wondered sending 3 rookie pitchers to the mound, rookie starters. I mean, yeah, I know that not having Glasnow, Glasnow would have been out there if he was healthy, but I mean, wouldn't you have loved to have Blake Snell in one of those games? Wouldn't you go deep into that ball game? Wouldn't you have loved to have Charlie Morton, who right now, is pitching in the NLDS? So I mean, with
I'll tell you what, if I had to pick a manager really to start my team around at this point in time, during the regular season, I don't think I'd pick Alex Cora, but he does enough to get his teams to the playoffs, and then he flips a switch, and his strategy and his game management is outstanding in the postseason. I mean, it's really shown his entire career. Because I mean, look, they didn't make it last year. Well, was it last year? He was back last year, but it was the year before. No,
he wasn't.
Oh, he wasn't there last year.
He was Ron Renicky last year in their 1 year. Like they were like, hey, if anything, it's going to be a short season anyway. So let's let Cora serve his suspension and then come back.
Yeah. And that was like they kind of like stepped out ahead of the MLB, and MLB was like, well, there's nothing really wrong with Alex Cora. He was just wrong place, wrong time. So, but yeah, I would definitely. I mean, I don't know. It's just that team. It just feels different than it did at the end of the regular season with them. And you know what? It is about momentum. It is about playing hot at the right times, and that's just what this team's doing. They're playing hot at the right time. I'm excited for the ALCS. It's gonna be a battle. I don't think I did not expect this, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't either. I definitely, especially after game 1 where you have a Rosarena not only homering but stealing home. I think that really, I think set the tone. But then I think the momentum switched off of that. Ground rule double, that like infamous call where it goes off of Renfroe and goes into the bullpen, which I mean was the right call. It's not anything super controversial. It's how the rule gets applied. It's just unfortunate for the Rays, and the Rays, they've got they don't really have a pitching staff. They have good pitchers on their staff, but they've got
a conglomerate of pitchers,
right? And it just kind of, one final note on it, it makes me think of the tweet I saw John Boy have where he was like, the Rays don't have starters, the Rays don't have relievers, the pitchers, the pitch, we just need out strategies out the window. Nerds lose. Like that's what
Right.
he talked about, and like that's true because I mean, like wouldn't you have loved to have any number of actual starters out there? I mean, you have a team that did have that, and I mean, you know, you have the Red Sox who had Pivetta who could come out of the bullpen and give you 4. You had Eduardo Rodriguez who pitched just well enough to get by. Did Sale get in at all in this? Oh yeah, he did. He got knocked
Yeah,
around
he
in game
pitched
2.
in game. Yeah, he got rushed out early in game
Right.
2. Now, I'll say this. I'll finish off with this. Last night they jumped out to that 5-0 lead and then allowed Tampa to tie it back up. And I was thinking to myself, I said, man, if the Red Sox end up losing this game and it goes back to Tampa Bay, they lose the series. There's
Yeah.
no way they can maintain the momentum of after losing a 5-0 lead and then having to go on the road to finish things off. There's no way. So last night, that walk-off, I mean, that was true Red Sox fashion, but that was exactly what they needed. There was no way they were going to win Tuesday night in Tampa. No way.
Right, absolutely. I do like, as we get into the next topic here. So when you said "I reckon," it prompted the response from the chat that I expected, that I was thinking of myself. Rage is in the chat saying, "I doth declare there has been a murder," from that scene from The Office. You know, where they're playing that murder mystery game. So yes, I'm glad we're on the same wavelength with the chat. And speaking of, let's go ahead real quick and talk about.
Speaking of blowing a major lead.
Yeah, oh my gosh, exactly. But first, we're gonna get a word from our friends of the show. We're gonna talk about, only because I know this is gonna be a lengthy discussion about the Indianapolis Colts. But you know, let's go ahead and talk about first Anchor. Anchor is the platform that we put our podcast on every week. They allow us to not only put our podcast here, but they distribute it to a lot of different podcast sites: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, a whole bunch of different avenues you can go to find the podcast. And they do that all for free. They just take your feed and distribute it to everyone. You can record either on the platform itself or upload it like we do. And it's really a nice, easy to use way to get your podcast out there, and you can monetize right away, which is very nice. And then also we are brought to you also by Eat Lunch and Board Game. That's a podcast all about board games and the connections that you can forge with your coworkers. My cousin Adam does that. He supports our podcast, we support his podcast, and he does a lot of great work interviewing people every week and all that kind of thing. So go check that out if that's your kind of thing. And then remember, you can find us at 3C Media Sports on Twitter, Crash Course Podcast on Facebook. Go subscribe on.
We called it Fake Book.
Fake Book. Fake news.
That's it. We just got canceled.
Yeah. Go subscribe to us on YouTube, 3C Media. We've got a lot of great content up there, as well as on TikTok. I'm pretty proud of the TikTok that I put out today. Small Talk, which is a little series there. So go check that out. 3C Media on TikTok and YouTube. Remember, you can watch the podcast live every week, twitch.tv/CraigCrash. That's where we, of course, talk to Pizzer in the chat, Rage in the chat. Thank you guys for being here. We definitely like to get that input from you guys. And remember, you can listen to us every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Wherever podcasts can be heard, you can hear the Crash Course Podcast. And as B. Scott said, speaking of blowing leads, we're going to talk about the Indianapolis Colts.
Or otherwise known as the Indianapolis Dumpster Fire.
Yes. So the Colts play the Baltimore Ravens. You know, you figure, hey, it's going to be a tough matchup. But, hey, maybe if the Colts can get a win, they'll be in good shape. They'll get the season back on track a little bit. And it starts out really good. Jonathan Taylor, 76-yard touchdown pass from Carson Wentz. The Colts are up 7-0. Then later, it's Michael Pittman, a 42-yard pass from Carson Wentz. It's 16-3. Jonathan Taylor again scores a touchdown. It's 22-3. Colts have the lead.
That Jonathan Taylor second one was off of the fumble on like the 3-yard line recovered by Darius Leonard, where it was called back because they said he had a illegal lateral.
Yes.
No, that was totally a backwards pass.
Yeah.
Totally. That was completely legal.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that when I saw it in real time. I was like, wait, what? They're calling that a forward pass, but it does stand on that one. The Colts do end up in the end zone. Now, what is notable is on the Michael Pittman touchdown. They did miss the extra point, Rodrigo Blankenship, and then later in the fourth quarter, it's 22-9. Rodrigo Blankenship hits a field goal. It's 25-9. The Colts are up big, but then it is Lamar Jackson taking over, doing what he does. He throws a pair of touchdowns to Mark Andrews, the second of which he gets a 2-point conversion also to Andrews. That ties it at 25. The Colts have an opportunity to tie it at the end. Rodrigo Blankenship misses the field goal.
He missed, but there's also the one that was blocked by Calais Campbell.
Right. So he misses the field goal that would have given the Colts the win. And then in overtime, it's Lamar Jackson to Marquise Brown for the touchdown, and the Ravens end up winning 31-25. The Colts drop to 1-4 on the season. Carson Wentz on the day went 25 for 35. 402 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor had 15 carries for 53 yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor also put in 116 yards of receiving and a touchdown there. Michael Pittman, 6 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. On the flip side, Lamar Jackson just went absolutely bananas. 37 for 43, 442 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also added 14 carries and 62 yards. He was the leading rusher as well. And then Mark Andrews, who I played against in fantasy in a couple leagues, that kind of stunk. 11 catches, 147 yards, and 2 touchdowns in the Ravens' victory. The Ravens are now 4-1 on the season. So you look back at this game, and I mean, you know, it's just one where you don't have a whole lot of words for it. I mean, it's just kind of the same. I
will say, I got to jump in real quick. I will say, before anybody wants to throw Rodrigo Blankenship under the bus, he hurt his hip in pregame warmup, and he was pushing through that. And you got to realize, teams don't carry multiple kickers on their game day rosters. So I know there was a weird thing at the end of the first half where they ran out Rigoberto Sanchez to try to kick a field goal, and then there was he missed it, and there was a penalty. So then the Colts got to kick again, and this time they brought out Blankenship, and he made it. But that's all because he was dealing with a hip injury. I don't 100% know which hip it was. If it was the hip on the leg that he plants his leg on, wow, no wonder he missed those because that would hurt like a mother.
Yeah.
So,
before
you throw him under the bus and say we need a new kicker, realize the circumstances for that one, but that does not let the team off the hook.
No,
at all.
Yeah,
at all.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's kind of the tricky thing because it's kind of like you don't expect the Colts to carry multiple kickers. You don't expect any team to carry.
Does.
Well, I was getting ready to say, you don't expect anyone to carry multiple kickers, but you also think, well, maybe, I mean, if he doesn't push through that injury, maybe if they have, more of a backup plan for that instance happening, because I mean, it's not like kickers don't get hurt.
Couldn't they have done the old Doug Flutie trick?
I don't know how well that would have worked, but maybe. I mean, I guess
Rigoberto Sanchez to get through the uprights.
The drop kick.
Drop kick.
I don't know how that works.
I don't know either.
I don't know the rules behind
that would have at least given you 1 point, and guess what? You would have won.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean,
and in the end, we all have been like, yeah, that was a pretty ugly win, but a win's a win.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so I mean, it just, and that's where you kind of just are left in awe and left speechless because like you had no other option but a hurt kicker. So that kind of gives you like, okay, we can be mad at Rigoberto all we want, but there's no actual reason to be mad at him because it's not like, there was like, what's the alternative in that scenario?
There's nothing Rodrigo or Rigoberto could have done.
And also up to this point, he's been really reliable. So it's not like you
knew there was something wrong. You just knew it. Everybody was even saying on Twitter, he doesn't look right. Something's got to be wrong.
Right. And I mean, The other thing you turn to, and it's kind of funny because yesterday, before the game, I was reading an article where, about Chris Ballard, which was, when, he preaches patience all the time, but when are we actually going to see the results? And the thing that I can kind of take away from this game is also just that depleted secondary. I know there's a lot
in the second half, I saw on Twitter people were saying we have all backups out playing right now in our secondary. And then all of a sudden, guess what happens? The secondary got torched.
Right.
Like, I know it's all about building homegrown talent, building your talent from within. Well, guess what? Eventually, you need some depth.
Right.
You need some solid depth. And it's time. I said it before. It's time to stop being so cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, I got to say this at the same time. He finally opened up the purse strings to maintain some players. And those players have played awful this year. Or they have been injured. I will say that. I can't say they played awful because they've been injured. Quentin Nelson, injured. Braden Smith, injured. Darius Leonard finally looks like he's getting healthy, but still injured. And it's been a big effect. And otherwise, he's like, nope, not spending any more money. It's like, dude, there are people like we could have used some help. But guess what? Now you're not going to be able to get those free agents in because those free agents know they can go sign a veteran minimum down in Tampa Bay, sit on the bench, do absolutely nothing, and they're probably going to get a ring. Nobody wants to come to the dumpster fire that's the Colts right now. They just don't.
And you just hate to see that when, I mean, there was a chance they were like in the conversation to potentially get Kyle Fuller last year. The Stephon Gilmore just became available, which is someone that I think I've brought up in the past as far as an option for the Colts to potentially look at as far as secondary is concerned. You wonder now, okay, what's the value of having not re-signed Justin Houston, not brought back Anthony Walker, not brought back... I don't know,
Justin Houston had one big play last night, and it was he was penalized on a horse collar.
Right. So like, what, some of those guys that the Colts didn't bring back, that also falls on Ballard. And so, like, and I'm not, believe me, I'm not in the camp of like, oh, get rid of Ballard. Grigson was better because I don't like, yeah. Well, dude, those people exist on Twitter, believe me. And so, I mean, I'm not.
People still want to come play for the Colts because of how good of a leader Ballard is.
It's
so
just
that's a huge deal.
It's just the fact that, like, it's kind of a weird spot to be in as a fan and just looking, even if you're an objective person looking inward at this team, because it's like, well, some of the things you could point out. I mean, it's not been the quarterback play. Carson Wentz has been really good this season. I mean, I guess not really good,
I want him to be injured.
Yeah,
I want him to be injured because now it's like, as a fan, you'll go, well, at least we'll get a good pick. We could look like we're getting ourselves lined up for another good pick. No, we're not.
Because you lose it.
We're going to hand Philadelphia a top 10 pick and go, well, that was a waste. I mean,
and not because Wentz,
played
horribly. It's because he was
the rest of the team played like that.
Right.
And it's just like can't. It's just like there's some kind of curse.
Right.
On the Colts right now. I don't know, like, where.
Right, because is it because we let the golden boy Andrew Luck get beat up for all of his entire career? Yeah. Is that it? Are we cursed because of that? Like, is this the curse of the lacerated kidney? It's the curse of Ryan Grigson, who not only refused to get Andrew Luck an offensive line and he was pummeled into oblivion, but also you have he pissed off one of the biggest sports personalities in Pat McAfee and made him retire early. So I think that might be. I think we're onto something there. But no, I just think that it's kind of just a weird spot to be in the sense that, like, you want to say it might be play calling, but like, you brought in Carson Wentz specifically for Frank Reich, so if you get rid of one of those two, which I'm not saying they should, like, where do you go from there? You have a owner in Jim Irsay who's praised both Ballard and Reich. Well, if Ballard isn't pulling the strings that you want to see if you're trying to create a Super Bowl caliber team, then where do you go from here? If you've done nothing but praise Ballard and you have an owner that isn't moving off of that idea of these two guys are amazing, even if the results don't reflect that, like, it just leaves you in, and this isn't all based on last night's game. I'm not drawing these conclusions based on last night, but this is just all kind of
back.
It's the frustration of a game that leaves you speechless, and you're just like, what do we do? Like, where do we go from here? And and like I said, not in the camp of like fire Blankenship and Reich and everybody into the sun, but I just don't know what we do from this point on. And I mean, and it just stinks because if the Colts win that game last night, they play the Texans next week. We could be talking about them in 2 weeks being 3-3, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, we're on the right track. There's some teams that we thought were playoff caliber that are not playoff caliber in the AFC this year, which we'll get to that here a little bit later. So maybe that gets the Colts kind of back into the conversation. And which, I mean, and that's the thing, too. That's what I love to hear, too, is that, there's one more game this season. Well, now you're getting to the point where that extra game doesn't matter because it's probably not going to be a win, especially when they play that extra game being against the Buccaneers. They're probably not winning that game. But, yeah, it just kind of leaves you speechless and you don't know where to go from there.
Right. And I will put a little bit of it on the play calling, though, because the Colts could move the ball at ease last night. I mean, they were 3 plays and all of a sudden they're in the red zone. But they get in the red zone, it was like they didn't know what to do anymore. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm watching Purdue. It's seriously, same issue. And the same complaint there, play calling. But last night in that first quarter, at the end of the first quarter, it should not have been 7-0. It should have been 21-0. The way the Colts were moving the ball with ease right into the red zone, over and over and over and over again. And how many times did they come away completely empty-handed, no points? That's a big issue.
That's been going on all year.
Yeah, all year. And then why in the world did the defense let up off the gas? I mean, yeah, I get it. The secondary was completely banged up and you were out there running practice squad guys almost. I get that. But, I mean, that's on Eberflus. Well, at least we can say we're not losing our defensive coordinator to be a head coach like we thought for a while that could potentially happen. But there's so many issues. There's zero pass rush. Zero pass rush,
which stinks because you spent 2 draft picks on
your first 2 picks. You spent your first 2 picks on draft picks that are nowhere to be found. Now we did know Odeyingbo, the guy from Vanderbilt. We knew he wouldn't be playing yet.
What's his name?
But Odeyingbo.
Yeah.
I need it in front of me.
I think it's Odeyingbo. Yeah, I think it is
Odeyingbo. Yeah. But so we all knew that. I was like, okay, but Kwity Paye, he was one of the highest graded defensive rookies in the preseason. And is he injured? What's going on there?
I think Kwity Paye is injured, actually. Let me look that up.
He's just are we ever going to see him? Like, what's going on? And if you cannot generate and beyond that, there's zero. Kamiko Toure is actually playing much better, and Tyquan Lewis is playing much better. I will say that, but you probably lost Grover Stewart last night for a while. That's going to be a big blow. You are seriously missing the leadership of Anthony Walker. I don't know how many times I've said that on here. That is a big, big reason why the defense is struggling. Darius Leonard's good, but I don't know if Darius Leonard is a quarterback of the defense like Anthony Walker was. That is a major, major blow. Yeah, Bobby Okariki's much more athletic and faster, but in the end, does that really matter? Gary Brackett wasn't the most athletic linebacker out there on the field. He was the smartest linebacker out there on the field and made the defense go. And that's what you're missing. You don't have a guy that's making the defense go anymore. And I knew that was going to be an issue.
Yeah.
I said it all along, but it's okay. Bobby Oker much better.
Paye is nursing an injury, but still, I mean, it's not. I don't think it's keeping him. I mean, I think it might have kept him out for a little bit, but it's definitely not so significant that it's gonna keep him out for super long. But still,
can we have a phantom? People did notice last night Carson Wentz took a sack and was favoring his shoulder. Can we have a phantom shoulder injury for Carson Wentz now? Because this season's going nowhere, and we're about ready to hand over a top 10 pick for Carson Wentz. Are we serious? I mean, yeah, he's playing well, but is he worth a top 10 pick? Yeah, maybe a second round pick turns into a first round, late first round. I'll be okay with that. But a top 10 pick we're talking potentially here. No, you cannot give up a top 10 pick. It is time. If I mean, yeah, they're going to win next week and everybody's going to go, oh, look,
they're 2-4.
They may have righted the ship. We all thought that against Miami, but we got to realize it was Miami.
Yeah.
I mean, if they would have held on against the Ravens, we could have then said the ship was righted. And yeah, time to go. But I have zero confidence in this team. Do I think they're going to beat the Texans? Yes, the Texans are even more of a dumpster fire. They have major issues.
They're
hey,
if they win, they're going to be the second best team in the AFC South. So they've got two other teams that are dumpster fires below them as well. So
I know the Colts can still finish second in the AFC South, but guess what? That's only 4 more wins.
Right.
So I mean, and honestly, I could see them only getting those 4 more wins.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough go of things for the Colts. It was already going to be a tough go of things with that schedule, but man, because you still have the Cardinals and you still have the 49ers. And the Buccaneers. Well, I'm thinking of looking at like the NFC West because that's who we play.
Yeah.
But you may be able to beat the 49ers.
Yeah, maybe the 49ers if you're lucky.
Yeah, but you're not beating the Cardinals.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough, and I mean,
I wish the Cardinals game was here in Indy.
And I mean, if you need one more reason to be mad at the Colts, be mad at the fact that if they do win next week, we're not going to be talking about them because we're going to be doing our NBA preview. So the 2 times we could have talked about Colts, we could have been talking about Colts wins. We actually had other things going on and we couldn't talk about.
And honestly, we ended up we almost canceled this week, but I was like, you know what? I think the Colts could do something. Let's talk about the Colts and the NFL.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? We're still going to talk about the NFL as a whole. We're still going to get into that, and that's where we'll transition to now. Because, like I said in the open, we haven't really talked a whole lot about the NFL as a whole. We've talked about the Colts. We've talked about, the college football landscape. We've talked a lot of football, but not about the whole, NFL as a whole. So as we go into NFL storylines, the season, if you can believe it, is a third of the way over. That's pretty crazy. I mean, it'll officially be a third of the way over. It's weird. I guess since this podcast is releasing on Wednesday, Thursday can technically be the third point because it's 17 games. A third would technically be like 5 1/3, 5 1/2-ish. So I guess when the Thursday night game kicks off, you can count that as the decimal point of the actual third of the way through the season. But we are at that point in the year, and so where things stand at the moment in the AFC, in the East, the Bills are leading the division, the Pats are second, the Dolphins are third, the Jets fourth. That's pretty much what I think we thought going into the season. In the North, the Ravens are number 1, the Bengals are number 2 right now. The Browns are 3, so that's pretty crazy. Then the Steelers are 4. I think there's some people that had quite a bit of faith in the Steelers to still be a decent team, but it's not looking great right now for them. In the South, it's the Titans, the Texans, the Colts, and Jaguars. In the West has actually, in both leagues, has been pretty crazy so far this season. As in the AFC West, you've got the Chargers at 1, the Raiders, of course, talk about dumpster fires. There's another one. The Raiders are second in the AFC West. The Broncos are third, and the Chiefs. I predicted the Chiefs to have an off year, but it's been not the greatest so far this season for them. In the NFC, you've got the Cowboys finally living up to their expectations. They're at 1. The Washington football team is 2. Eagles are 3. Giants just cannot get it going. And, of course, a scary couple of injuries with Saquon and Daniel Jones going down. In the North, you've got the Packers 1, Justin Fields and the Bears are 2, Vikings are 3, Lions just cannot seem to get a win. So snake-bitten over there at Ford Field. In the South, you've got the Bucks at 1, the Panthers at 2, the Saints at 3, and the Falcons at 4. Hey, they staved off the comeback this week against the Jets. And then in the West, you've got the Cardinals, B. Scott's Super Bowl pick at number 1. You've got the Rams at 2, the Seahawks at 3, and the 49ers rounding out the NFC West. So before we get into hot or cold here, we want to go with our biggest surprise. And you know what? we don't want to be harsh. We don't want to be Debbie Downers here on the podcast. So we want to give our biggest surprise, and rather than disappointment, we want to say what's been a good surprise, what's been a not so good surprise. Here on the Crash Course podcast. So first, as far as good surprises go, I said it a little bit. What about them Cincinnati Bengals? Who Dey Nation, 3-2, second in the AFC North. We talked about the offensive line, and they should have taken Penei Sewell, and their offensive line was terrible, and they're going to get Joe Burrow killed. It's just like Andrew Luck a couple of years ago, and instead, the offensive line has been doing its thing over there in Cincinnati. Their offensive line went into the season ranked 25th. They're 13th right now in pass blocking efficiency, which is where they were heading into Week 5, and then in Week 6, they're 6th in run blocking as far as efficiency goes. Joe Mixon right now is 5th in rushing, 386 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jamar Chase, the guy they drafted instead of Sewell, is having an amazing season. 456 receiving yards, which has him 7th in the league, and he's got 5 touchdowns, tied for 2nd. So, we've got the early Rookie of the Year candidate. Joe Burrow is 7th in QBR, so, you might think, okay, well, the Bengals, it's early in the season, they're 3-2, it's not, too much to get excited about, but hey, they face the Ravens on 10/24, which they should be 4-2 heading into that game. They do play the Lions, so all signs point to them winning that game, and going into that one 4-2 against the Ravens. So hey, the Colts had the Ravens with their backs against the wall. This will be a divisional game, a rivalry game for the Ravens and the Bengals. So, hey, if the Bengals can win that game, get to 5-2 on the season, there's some good things brewing in Ohio.
Yeah. I like that pick for the good. Because they have been a surprise team. I'm actually going to go on the NFC side of things. I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys. We always joke about the NFC East that nobody really wants to win that division. Somebody just has to win it. But the Cowboys actually look like legitimate contenders in the NFC this year. I'll just say this. I think the NFC is pretty wide open. I don't think Tampa Bay is a lock, to be honest. There's a lot of teams that are playing really, really good football in the NFC right now, and the Cowboys are one of them. It feels like they're finally coming into the form that we all expected them to be, over the past several seasons. Dak Prescott is playing unbelievably well. He's really bounced back from that gruesome ankle injury really well. You're getting enough out of Ezekiel Elliott, and I really like this Cowboys team. They've been a really nice surprise for me this season.
Yeah, the Cowboys have been very good this season. We'll see if that can hold up. As far as bad surprises, something that surprised us with how bad it's been, I'm going to go with originally I said, I don't feel like I should do this because I picked the Chiefs to take a step back at the beginning of the year. Because, not because I think that, it's all been a fluke and, all been a house of cards and this is the year we'll finally see it. No, it's just because they've had so much success that just the law of averages says, like, hey, when's the last time we saw a team get to 3 straight Super Bowls? When's the last time, we saw a team have this much success consecutively, in terms of getting to the big game. So, I just expected them to take a step back in that regard. That's all that meant. Hey, they're going to take a step back, be 13-4, and be in the AFC Championship game. But right now, it's been not, it's not been really, like, alarm bells bad, but it's not been good. They are 2-3, 4th in the AFC West. Their offense is 3rd in yards per game, 5th in passing, and 7th in rushing. They are 5th in points per game. That's their offense is pretty much par for the course there. And usually in the past, like, they're not known for having, a great defense, but the defense this season has been atrocious. They're 31st in terms of yards per game. Their only wins this season are against the Browns and the Eagles. Their losses coming against the Ravens, Chargers, and Bills. So they have been losing against teams that they will most likely face in the playoffs, a team that they will have to face again in order to win their division. So They've not looked good against the opponents they've played that are playoff caliber. I mean, I know the Browns are also playoff caliber, but I think of those 4 teams, I think they're probably the weakest. And they struggle. I mean, they barely beat the Browns. It's not like they bulldozed the Browns or anything and then lost those other 3 games. I mean, it was an effort to try to beat them. So I mean, it's not been atrocious to this point. It has been defensively, but it's just. It's not been what we've expected to see out of the Chiefs, and it's been kind of surprising to see. They took a step back like we thought they might, but they've taken a bigger step back than what we thought.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. The Chiefs are definitely right up there, but I'm actually gonna go with it's a toss up for me between the New Orleans Saints and the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers, mostly because I thought Ben Roethlisberger. I know he's not the same quarterback that he was, or he has been. And I know he really probably should have retired, but I just kind of figured he had a lot of really good pieces around him, and that defense was also set up to be a really, really good defense. They seem like a train wreck to me, and more so than the Colts. But I just can't figure it out. And now you lose Juju Smith-Schuster for an extended period of time, and the outlook doesn't get any better because of that. I mean, he's one of your top playmakers. You lose him. It's just I was expecting more out of them than not a whole lot more. I thought they'd be competitive, but they just kind of look like they can't get out of their own way. And it's really kind of confusing.
So, hey, bonus, hot or cold, Ben Roethlisberger is going to be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers Week 18 against whoever they play.
Oh, it's hot.
Meaning, yeah, I was going to say, do you think he retires early? You think he retires like mid-season?
No.
I think
he's got too much pride.
Well, why? Well, but like,
why would you retire mid-season?
Well, then why do you think he's not going to be the quarterback then? You think he'd rather be benched than just say,
wait. You said hot or cold. He will be the quarterback.
Yeah, and I'm saying it's
and I
cold.
said hot.
No. Oh wait, no what?
I said hot. I said hot.
Oh,
I do think he's going to be the quarterback.
Sorry, my bad.
Why would he be?
No, but he's.
I said hot.
Yeah, he's gonna. But I'm saying he's gonna. At some point, this team has been so bad that I think at some point during the season he might just take the bye week.
Is Mason Rudolph still the backup there?
I think so.
I mean, at some point they're gonna try it.
Right, but
they're gonna.
But with them trying it, he came back. I mean, he came back to be the guy. You think he's gonna?
Right.
You think he's?
But he also understands it's a business, and they gotta try something else if one thing's not working.
If they,
I don't see him like throwing a hissy fit and saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna retire then." Because what if it doesn't work for Mason Rudolph? Then they'll go, okay, we're going to go back to Big Ben because he is our guy, but it's not working with either one of them, so we're going to go with our guy.
If there's that much movement at the quarterback position, then like the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't going anywhere anyway.
Well, they're toast anyways. I don't think they're going anywhere anyway.
Well, right, but technically they're in a better spot. I mean, you said worse than the Colts. They're in a better spot than the Colts are right now.
Yeah, that's true.
As far as even if it's just win-loss totals, I mean. They're already, looking worse than the 3 teams that are currently ahead of them. I mean, because I think going into the season, you could have at least banked on the Bengals and then been like, okay, well, we still have, maybe we can leapfrog the Ravens and be second and make the playoffs that way. And I don't think that that's going to happen.
Right. But so, I don't see him retiring mid-season.
I think there's a chance.
There's a chance.
And I was gonna say I'm not being that. I'm not being that guy too. That's like technically anything can happen at any time. No, I'm just saying that like if he were to get benched, the Steelers season is going in the tubes anyway. So why would you just be like, you know what, I should have done? Not everybody can just have that like swan song amazing end of the year.
I really don't see him pulling an Andrew Luck and retiring just before a game one day.
No, I think when's their bye week? If let's say their bye week is week 8 and they go in there. How often do you
see somebody just like that should have retired just decide I'm going to retire unless they were like cut? They're like, yeah, I
don't know, but I don't
see it happening.
I don't think it's unheard of.
I can see him retiring once they're like he can announce. I think he may announce. after the season's done, I am retiring. I can see that happening. I don't see him abruptly saying, "I'm done. Bye."
I mean, why? Okay, if you're gonna retire at the end of the season, your team's season is effectively over. You've been benched. Why would you not? Why would you not just say, I don't want to risk having my leg torn off and on a tackle and have to rehab that injury?
If your season, I mean, it may energize your teammates. I don't know. I just don't see him.
I mean, that did happen with them and Jerome Bettis, so maybe that could work.
Yeah. I just don't see him just walking away in the middle of the season. I can see him announcing that at the end of the season, this season will be his last. I can see that happening.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the actual hot or cold discussion here, where we make a statement and say whether or not we think it is a hot take or a cold take. First question is, we're going to have 2 AFC questions, 2 NFC questions. The first question on the AFC side is the Chargers will win the AFC West. For me, that is a hot take. They're the number 1 seed in the AFC right now. Their lone loss is to the Cowboys. They already have a win over the Chiefs and the Raiders, so that's really huge because those are the teams that I think are the most legit to have a chance to win the AFC West. So I think those are their 2 biggest contenders for that division. They're 7th in the league in points per game and yards per game. They're 3rd in passing. Justin Herbert has been absolutely amazing. He's completing 67% of his passes for 1,576 yards, 13 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. He's 10th in terms of QBR, and they have a very favorable schedule coming up. They do play the Ravens this next week, but then they have the Patriots, who are not, who at one point were getting thumped by the Texans. So we'll see, if they, the Pats have been very up and down this year. Then they go to Philadelphia. They've got the Vikings. They've got the Steelers. They're at the Broncos. They can through November, and that means they could end up being 9-2 when it comes to the conclusion of November into December. So I think this Chargers team is set up, especially if the Chargers continue to struggle, to win the AFC West.
I mean, the Chiefs continue to struggle.
Yeah,
I agree. This is definitely a hot take, especially with the Chiefs' struggles right now. Even if the Chiefs kind of right the ship, it may be too much, too little, too late for them to overtake the Chargers to win the division. So I think the Chargers are really set up in a really nice spot, especially with their upcoming schedule, like you said, to allow them to really put a stranglehold on the top spot of their division. Do I see them holding on to the top spot of the AFC? No. I think ultimately that's going to ultimately go to the Bills. They look really good.
My Super Bowl pick. Let's go.
The Chargers, this is not a team you want to have to face in the playoffs. This is not a team you want to have to face week to week, anything like that. This is a good football team. It'll be interesting to see if they do the regular Chargers thing and completely lay an egg come the playoffs, or if they are, if they've turned a leaf on that one and are legitimate contenders.
Right.
But I think that's definitely a hot take that they win the AFC West. I think with the way their schedule is set up, that really sets them up favorably.
The next question about the AFC is the Bengals made the right choice taking Jamar Chase. For me, that's a hot take, and see basically what I said earlier, the fact that Jamar Chase right now is 7th in the NFL in receiving. He has 5 touchdowns on the year, and that's huge. I mean, right now, not only be up in the ranks of those big time wide receivers, but also be the contender right now for Rookie of the Year, the front runner there. I mean, he, like I said, he leads the Bengals in receiving. He's on pace for over 1,500 yards. Tyler Boyd, who's also on the roster, was the last receiver for the Bengals to amass 1,000 yards. That was back in 2019. And then you also have T. Higgins, who struggled a little bit so far, but he's another talented receiver in that core. And I mean, this is a team that's got a lot of weapons on the offensive side, and when you can add another receiver, especially one that Burrow is familiar with, that only enhances the offense. I think, this is kind of the first year where we saw literally every team jump on that trend of Jamar Chase played with Joe Burrow in college, get him. Tua played with Jalen Waddle, get him. Trevor Lawrence played with Travis Etienne, get him. So I think we might be seeing more of that, kind of similar to what we see in baseball with the personal catcher, where you're like, hey, let's go get somebody that's compatible. If we're gonna draft, Drew Plitt out of Ball State, make sure you get a Ball State wide receiver to go along with him.
Justin Hall.
Yeah, exactly. So that way, you've got that compatibility.
Wait, can the Colts draft Drew Plitt now because we have Danny Pinter?
I mean, I think that makes sense. I mean,
that works for me.
I don't know if it coordinates from quarterback to lineman, but we know it works.
Hey, it's the center. I mean, they moved Danny Pinter to center.
True.
There's chemistry there. I don't know. He didn't play center at Ball State, so.
Right. So I mean, yeah, I think we kind of are going to start seeing that, where you see guys go out and get their counterpart. I mean, it'd be Spencer Rattler, even though he just got benched, and Marvin Mims. Like, that's another kind of tandem. Yeah. So that's I think we're seeing kind of the start of that kind of thinking as far as drafting is concerned, and I think they made a great choice. I mean,
So what this means, though, is that next year the Chicago Bears are going to draft Chris Olave. Ohio State.
I mean, it could happen. I mean,
mark my words.
I think that's I think that's a good pick, and I think there's some, especially if the Bengals end up if Jamar Chase ends up winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, Joe Burrow has a great season, the Bengals are like at least in the playoff hunt. I mean, it's worth a shot. Go out and get a wide receiver. Show your team that you're committed to. Show your quarterback you're committed. That you're committed to. Building around them. So yeah, I think it's a hot take. They made the right choice. I mean, obviously it's okay to say now because it's worked out. But I think ultimately it has turned out to be the right decision that they went with Chase over Sewell.
Oh yeah, I agree. This is definitely a hot take, and I mean, look, the numbers don't lie. What's funny to me is that it's weird to see the Bengals actually have two really good wide receivers. It takes me back to the good old days of T.J. Hushmanzada and Chad Ochocinco out there. And I think, who did they have at running back? They had a really good running back too.
They had, for a while, they had like Cedric Benson, and they had
them?
I think, yeah.
Okay.
They had Corey Dillon, I know, but I think Corey Dillon by the time Corey Dillon was good. Corey Dillon was good in Cincinnati, but then got out of there, went to the Patriots for a while, and I think that's when Hushmanzada and Ocho Cinco came onto the. Oh, they had no, they didn't have.
I thought they had Corey Dillon at that point too.
No, if anything, it was right at the tail end of Corey Dillon in Cincinnati. But now I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of who is that running back, because I know Cedric Benson was there, but I'm trying to think of somebody else too.
Wait, wasn't it Bernard?
Yeah, no, Giovanni Bernard was later.
Okay. But anyways, yeah, it's definitely a hot take. I mean, and it does. I feel like it helps in the progression. I mean, we've talked about this already, but it does help in the progression of your rookie quarterback. It gives him somebody that he has that chemistry already with, and it's his go-to guy. And it's showing it's his go-to guy, and it's also showing that it doesn't matter if everybody knows it's his go-to guy. So yeah, I think that was definitely the right pick at the time. I don't know how well Penei Sewell's playing. I mean, it's hard to I'll tell you, it's so hard to gauge offensive linemen.
Right. Well, and also I don't think Goff's done much of anything. There's not much for Goff to do in Detroit. There's not a whole lot without Galladay there, without some of that other talent. There's not really a whole lot for Goff to even throw to out there. So yeah, it's hard to even if Sewell was playing terribly right now, you'd still be like, well, I mean, it's the Lions. There's nobody there.
Right. So I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely a hot take that they took Jamar Chase, and that's what I mean, they've spent how many picks on a wide receiver in the first round the past couple of years? I think 2. T. Higgins, wasn't he a first rounder?
Maybe, yeah.
If not a second rounder. They're doing what you should do if you want to build a really good offense. Put legitimate weapons around your quarterback, not undrafted wide receivers and 6th round picks. That's just what you do. So yeah, I think it's a great pick. It's panned out really well for them.
Yeah, for sure.
And I You know, if it wasn't for him having such a good year, I would have said that right now. Have said the front runner. No, I mean, the front runner for offensive rookie of the year would have been Rondale Moore, just the way he's been playing. But Jamar Chase is playing even better, which is so. It's a great pick.
Yeah. Moving on over to the NFC, the Packers are still a top 2 NFC team. I know when we had our picks as far as, hey, who's, going to be in that contender for, having a top 2 seed, who's going to be a Super Bowl contender coming out of the NFC, we mainly in that top tier had the Buccaneers and the Packers. Well, since that point, the Packers have not been all that great. I do have this as a cold take. The Cowboys, Buccaneers, and Cardinals are first, second, and sixth, respectively, in terms of yards per game. Offensively, second, they're also second, third, and fourth, respectively, in points per game. The Packers, in those same categories, 21st in yards per game and 13th in points per game. They're also 20th in points allowed per game, despite having the 6th best defense in terms of yards allowed per game. So, their defense is not up to snuff. Their offense is not performing at the level of the other top teams in the NFC. And honestly, the Packers are a couple plays away from being 2-3. I mean, they needed a late drive to beat the 49ers, although the 49ers are, if they were in any other division, would probably be the second best team in that division in the NFC. And they also nearly lost the Bengals. So, I mean, we just sung their praises. So it's not like they've lost, or it's not like they've, won. It's not like you can take away a lot from the teams they beat. It's not like you can be like, oh well, they beat 3 cupcakes. I mean, they did beat the Lions, but
it's not like a team we're going to talk about here on the next question that beat up a bunch of cupcakes.
You're right, exactly. So I think they're still a good team. They're still going to win the North, but they're likely going to be the 4th seed. I have a lot more faith in what the Cowboys are doing right now because they've looked very. It's not like the Cowboys have been winning, but have also barely scraped along. They've been winning convincingly. They're the only loss on the Chargers, who look really good. And then you've got the Buccaneers, who are playing really well and looking really good. And then you've got the
NFC West.
You've got the NFC West, which is just insanely good. Although the Seahawks are gonna take a back seat, I think, a little bit with Russell Wilson being out, but. I mean, there's just so many other good options to choose from that I think the Packers are going to end up playing they're going to end up playing the team that doesn't win the NFC West in that first round of the playoffs.
But at least they'll have to go to Lambeau. Yeah. Right. So yeah, I agree. Definitely a cold take, just because of the NFC West in itself. I mean, yeah, I know it kind of gets broken up based off of seeding and everything.
Right.
But when you look at the power rankings, I guess, of the NFC, they're not a top 2. They're definitely not. I mean, it helps them the fact that Seattle has lost Russell Wilson for an extended period of time, but they're definitely not a top 2. I mean, right now, I think your top 3 in a power ranking scenario are the Buccaneers, 1, just because until they prove me otherwise, 2, the Rams, 3, the Cardinals. And then 4, I think I would have the Cowboys, and then 5, the Packers at this point. Now, obviously, that's not how it's going to shake out in the playoffs because seeding and how that works. But yeah, I don't think when you look at a power ranking scenario that they are a top 2 team in the NFC anymore. Yeah. But this also still the Packers that even last year they didn't look all that good and they backed their way into a first round bye. So you just never know with this team, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. That's what's crazy too is I think in the way they're playing now, I mean, there's a chance they may not even. I think we kind of had a how does Tampa Bay and Green Bay not play in the NFC Championship game again? And then now we're like, man, if things go the way they are, they're going to be playing. They may not get out of the first round. They may not make it out of the first round, depending on who they end up playing. So, yeah, we'll see. Maybe the Packers can kind of turn things around. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has been kind of, mundane these first few weeks, so he'll kick it into gear at some point, I'm sure. Final question of the night here, and originally, B. Scott, this was going to be a question geared to kind of give you some love because you were in on the Panthers at the beginning of the year, saying that they could be a surprise playoff team, and right now they are a playoff team. So I kind of designed this question for you to give them some love, but It doesn't sound like you're going to give them any love, which is also what I'm not going to do either. The Panthers are a playoff team, hot or cold. For me, it is a cold take. Right now, the Panthers do hold the seventh seed in the NFC, but they started 3-0. They do have the second best defense in football in terms of yards allowed per game, and they're third in terms of points allowed per game. But when you look at the teams that they played, the Saints, Texans, and Jets, they are the 28th through 30th offenses in terms of yards per game. The Texans are the 29th, and the Jets are the 32nd team in points per game. The offense... the Panthers' offense is 16th in terms of yards, 17th in terms of points, and they've lost 2 straight games to the Cowboys and Eagles. So, I mean, obviously, we just sung the Cowboys' praises, so that's not, a loss to take lightly at all. But the Eagles right now are kind of, right in the middle of being a kind of more or less a spoiler team right now, I think, than anything else. So, I mean, it's not like the Panthers have lost to 2 teams they necessarily shouldn't have lost to, but at the same time, their beginning of the season, I think, kind of gave us that false sense of security. They beat up on some bad teams. It's that question of, oh, well, are they really that good, or are the teams that are playing really that bad? Well, it's starting to look like those teams are really that bad.
Yeah, I agree. Cold take. Do they have the potential of trying to contend for a wild card? Yeah, I think they could. But when you look, again, I'm just gonna say it, NFC West. I'm sorry, but unless the Seattle Seahawks completely fall apart, which is a possibility, that could very well happen, I just don't see another team from another division getting in at one of the wild card spots. I think it's going to be an NFC West wild card sweep. To be honest,
it's going to be all 4 teams are getting in.
Oh, that's right. There's an added wild card too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but still, though, I still think. I mean, the Saints, I feel like, have looked a little bit better than the Panthers as far as who they've played. I know they lost head to head. You still got the Washington football team, who are second right now. I think they're 9th in the NFC completely, but they're I think still capable. Although their defense, which we thought was going to be really good, is not very good this year so far. Take it from a guy who drafted their defense in fantasy, and it literally a couple weeks ago got -7 because of their game against the Bills.
Don't sleep on Philadelphia. Like you said, they could play a spoiler, but
right. So you've got
sometimes when you play spoiler enough, that just works out in your favor.
Yeah, you've got.
I can't figure out Minnesota. I cannot figure out Minnesota at all.
Basically,
is it a good team or is it not a good team?
Right. Basically, in not so many words, you've got. You can choose the Panthers, or you can choose about the, you could pick a NFC West sweep. I mean, the 49ers, I mean, I said that as if it couldn't happen. It could happen. And also, in the NFC North, you've got, like you said, the Vikings maybe, the Bears maybe. In the NFC South, you've got the, Panthers maybe, the Saints maybe, and then the NFC, East, you've got the Phillies, you've got the Eagles, maybe, and maybe the Washington football team. So you've got other teams that look just as tantalizing as the Panthers do, and it's not that the Panthers set themselves apart from those other teams.
So the only thing I think that works in the Panthers' favor is that the 49ers play in the NFC West.
Yeah.
And the NFC West is going to beat up on each other. Somebody has to lose those head-to-head matchups. And unfortunately...
Not necessarily. They could all tie.
Oh, even then, that doesn't help you.
That's true.
I still, unfortunately, that could mean San Francisco is the odd team out of that potentially. So I still think it's cold because I need to see more out of this team against contenders. But it's not super cold. It's room temperature.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of...
I wouldn't get in that bathtub. Too cold to get in that bathtub. But, it's cold enough that it's refreshing to drink.
That's the worst, I think. First of all, why? Wait. You can't.
You went from a bathtub to drinking.
Why are you drinking your bath water, bro?
I'm not. I'm saying I'm trying to describe a temperature.
The temperature of water. Okay. I was
Yeah.
like, Scott's over here drinking his bath water. What are you doing, man?
Hey, my kids drink their bath water.
You know what? If they're gonna do, I could you're just like in a fit of trying to get them to like mind you, and they're like, you know what? Fine, I'll drink it too. And you just oh gosh.
If you're thirsty enough, you'll do whatever you gotta do.
Oh my gosh, dude. And honestly, I think lukewarm like water when you're in the shower or bath, I think is worse than if it's just strictly hot or cold.
Oh yeah.
Like, because you're just like, this is uncomfortable.
This is not comfortable, but not uncomfortable. I don't know what to do with it.
Well, on that note, I think that's going to conclude things here for the Crash Course podcast. Thank you guys all for listening. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at 3C Media Sports. You can like us on Facebook, Crash Course Podcast. Go over to the YouTube. Go over to the TikTok, 3C Media over there. A lot of great content there. You can also watch us live every week on twitch.tv/CraigCrash. Also, if you're into gaming, you can also head over there. The streams will be picking up here soon for just regular gaming if you want to vibe that way. And then remember that you can watch us or listen to us every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Wherever podcasts can be heard, you can hear the Crash Course Podcast. B. Scott, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Brandon_Scott87. You can also hop on there and see a picture of my bath water drinkers.
Yes. What, you guys got pumpkins today?
Yeah, we carved a pumpkin tonight, or as my son likes to call it, a mumpkin.
Hey, you know what?
He likes to see all the mumpkins out there this time. Oh.
Hey, don't we all? And then you can also follow me at Crash Course FM. We will be back next week. It's going to be, you know what? You've been hearing football pretty much nonstop since.
I'm not complaining.
I mean, no, not at all. But since about, August, late August, early September, you've heard nothing but football. It'll be broken up next week as we give our NBA preview as the NBA season, which seems like they've had
They've had like 4 seasons in the last few years.
Right, exactly. So the NBA getting ready to start up again. We'll be talking a lot of Pacers. We'll be talking our season predictions. It's going to be a lot of fun. But until then, have a good week, everybody.